All right. Good morning, transportation community. This is Luis Lopez again here, the Freight Guru, again for our weekly podcast. I'm here today with Gilbert, and I'm here with Robert.
Nice to be here.
Guys, good morning. So
Good morning.
today we're going to discuss an important topic and really the inception of what we're trying to educate people on, which is, you know, if you're interested in transportation, maybe you're on the fence about going to college, maybe you're on the fence about going to business school, and you see transportation as a fragmented industry that maybe has some opportunity for growth, and maybe you're interested in getting involved in this community of trucking, warehousing, distribution, one of the many facets of transportation, then this is the podcast for you. And today we're going to talk about how to start a trucking company. The first thing we want to discuss is the fact that there's multiple ways of starting a trucking company, right? You could be an owner-operator, meaning you're going to run that truck, you're going to drive that truck, or you could be a company owner with 1, 2, 3, or multiple trucks, and that would be considered a fleet owner. That owner probably isn't operating the truck, they're just managing either 1 to multiple trucks in their fleet. So the goal today is to give a very clear 1, 2, 3, 4 step process on how to start a trucking company. And then as we go through our podcast weekly, we're going to help you figure out the ideal insurance providers that I think you should reach out to, the ideal different angles that you should look at in order to get on the road quicker and more efficient, right? So I want to focus on the fleet owner. Okay, the guy that doesn't want to drive the truck, might be in business school, might be a year in college, and maybe stays, you know what, I'm going to start a trucking company, and I want to get this thing going. So looking at that, the first thing we're going to look at when we look at a trucking potential owner is that he's going to have to provide it internally for himself a business plan, because transportation is a very general word. There's different modes of domestic transportation. You can have a fleet owner that is handling last mile delivery or first mile delivery. You can have a fleet owner that is doing container drayage. You can have a fleet owner that is doing 300 to 500 mile radiuses inside of one state. Or you can have a fleet owner that is all over the United States and is going to all 48 states. So that's the first thing you need to write on a business plan is what kind of transportation provider do you want to be, right? I'm going to focus today on the over-the-road transportation provider, the business owner that is running trucks all 48 states of the United States, okay? So we have already established a business plan. We're going to provide you a template of a business plan in this podcast for you to utilize. So once you've written your business plan, which, by the way, it might sound like nonsense doing a business plan now, but you're going to regret not doing it in 6 months from now, because that business plan, when you go try to get credit, is going to be helpful. So write your business plan now. Even though it's internal right now, you want to have a business plan for the future so you can go back and have a mission statement that you already established before you establish your business. Very important. Secondly, what you want to do is legally establish your business. Are you going to be an S corporation? Are you going to be an LLC? Are you going to be incorporated as a C corp? Whatever you decide, that's something you got to speak to your accountant on. You got to decide what's best for you. Once you've decided that, you go to your state licensing division and you create a company. In Florida, I can only speak for Florida, we use sunbiz.org. And for under $100, you can open up a business. Once you open up your business, second thing is you're going to have to file for an EIN number, right? You got to get an IRS number from the government. Can do that online, okay? That EIN number, we're going to provide you that link on this site today. And just so we can see, I'm going to do it for you. Request EIN online. You can apply for employer identification right on the federal website. Very, very simple. So you can request and apply right online. So you've already now created a corporation. You've now requested an EIN, okay? Now you're going to go to step 3, which is you're going to obtain the necessary state licenses that you need in order to incorporate a business. Occupational license, workers' compensation, federal tax, unemployment for the state, right? So you're gonna do those steps. Have I lost you guys already here? Or it's pretty simple, right?
Yep.
Pretty simple stuff.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and we're gonna put a 1, 2, 3 for you right there in this podcast, and our goal is to make sure that you get all the links so that it's simply 1, 2, 3, check off the boxes. Once you've gone ahead and done your local federal licensing, you're going to go to the DOT website and you're going to go to getting started with the registration. And when you get started with the registration, you're going to have to request certain information that you're going to have available, and you're going to provide it to the DOT. And once you provide that to the DOT, you're going to have to wait 30, 45 days and meet a couple insurance caveats as well as agent BOC3 filing caveats in order to get on the road. And insurance is going to be your biggest challenge. Getting insurance for a DOT that is readily new is very difficult because ultimately insurance is based on risk. And when you're a brand new company with limited to no experience in transportation, they're going to have a hard time insuring you at a very good premium. You're going to have to pay a premium that is going to be probably 2 to 2.5 times what a fleet owner that has 2 or 3 years of data would be paying. But that's the sacrifice you're going to have to make to get on the road quickly. I would highly recommend when you start doing your process of getting insurance to immediately go to the first step of Progressive. Progressive writes new entrants all the time. And their rates are high, but there's very little friction, and they will get you insured. Without insurance, you're not going to be able to get on the road. So it's really, really important to make sure that you are on the road as quickly as possible, because the quicker you get on the road, the quicker you can get onto the load boards and start creating, these triangles that we've spoken about before and get creating on revenue. Okay. So you're going to fill out, and we're going to upload this link, but you're going to put this link, you're going to process this link, and you're going to have your social security number. You're going to have all your information. Once you've gone through that process, it's going to give you a reference number that you're going to keep, that you'd be able to call the DOT at any point to ask for an update. Throughout that process, you're going to also have to file a BOC3 filing. And the DOT does a very good job of explaining what a BOC3 is. Basically, a BOC3 is a processing agent that you would need to have in every state, right? And it's a designation of process agents form that you're going to fill out. The DOT, we will provide you, the DOT actually provides it here on the website, a complete list of all authorized BOC3 agents. This is the actual BOC3 filing that the agent is going to fill out for you. This is going to be $29.95 to $45 to fill out. And again, if you go and you check and you Google or ping and they'll give you can go one by one and see here's like the first one, number A1, number 20. So these guys charge $20. BOC3 filing LLC. And you could send them an email and you give them your DOT number and they'll process a BOC3 filing for you right away. Pay them and you'll get it. And basically what they're doing is filling out this form for you and providing you an agent that the Department of Transportation can send information to in any given state. See all these states? That's what the BOC3 is going to be for. And it's one of the requirements in order to get a DOT number.
So with that in mind, that means that you can start a trucking business with less than $1,000.
To get started, yes, less than $1,000. But the insurance for an individual truck over the road is going to be between $18,000 to $24,000. I've seen even $26,000.
Insurance.
Yeah, the insurance is going to be heavy. And you're going to have to recruit drivers. You're going to have to spend money on Facebook ads. You're going to have to spend money, which we're getting to. Mm-hmm. We're getting there. So now you've gotten your BOC3 filing, right? Going back to the business plan. When you created the business plan, something you had to start thinking about is, well, how am I going to buy or lease this truck? And that's a model that you have to make a decision on. Are you going to be a lease carrier fleet, or are you going to own the truck and trailer? I've spoken in previous podcasts, I like the lease option better. And there's two major providers for leasing. There's Penske and Ryder. We have relationships with both. They both do a very good job of getting equipment in a condition where the vehicle maintenance records are going to be maintained very well. What happens with owning trucks? You have to maintain those trucks. You have to do your vehicle maintenance. It's very hard to run a trucking business and also be a maintenance company. There are trucking companies that have done it and do it very successfully. But in my opinion, I think you're better off leaving that other business to somebody that knows what they're doing and knows how to do it better. I like the lease option. Now, a lot of people would argue that the truck ownership model is better because you can flip those trucks for a profit after 2-3 years, and now also parlay your trucking business into a used truck sales business. It is true. But I think that at that point you're spreading yourself too thin. And reality is, if you're running 1 to 5 trucks, it's already going to be very hard for you to run trucks at the beginning. You're gonna have a year of basically being in college where you're gonna learn how to deal with drivers, how to deal with road conditions, how to deal with shippers and consignees not being on time and losing a day with a layover. That's what your focus should be, not on creating a side business, right? That's what your focus should be. So, again, you got to make that decision on your business plan. Are you going to go with a leased model, or you're going to go with a purchase model? Either way, that's a decision we can argue for the next 2 hours on. And then the next step would be the insurance part, right? You're going to call Progressive. I recommend looking on Facebook. You can look up, in your area, you look up the Facebook pages for trucking companies and post, hey, I'm from Texas. I just started my business. I want to know trucking community of Texas. What insurance provider are you using? It's a very fragmented business. Every state is going to have specific caveats, specific insurance agents that are running policies for that state. Even though you're going to be running all across the United States, you're going to be procuring drivers from that state. So you want to make sure that you get an insurance agent that is going to be able to do MVRs, right, which is motor vehicle registration forms for drivers, so that you can pull those MVRs and know that you're hiring a qualified driver. Because ultimately, everything we're discussing today is the easy part. The part that is hard and the part that makes the trucking business exceptionally difficult is that compliance has to be your number one priority. If you are not meeting the compliance guidelines of ELD, vehicle maintenance, driver onboarding, okay, driver qualifications, if you're not meeting those caveats, you will be out of business within a year very easily. The Department of Transportation is not going to have a motor carrier out on the road that is creating havoc on the road. There's families, there's cars, there's other people on those roads. And ultimately, the Department of Transportation is directly responsible for the management of these motor carriers on the roads. And if you are not focused on compliance, you're going to fail. No matter how good of a salesperson you are, no matter how great a customer base you have, no matter how great your drivers are, no matter how many drivers you have, you will fail. You will fail if you do not comply and make compliance your number one obligation every day. I think every day the owner or the fleet manager has to be in direct communication with their fleet compliance person daily. If you want to outsource it, no problem. There's a lot of companies that do outsourcing for compliance, especially if you're 1 to 3 trucks. Makes sense to outsource. But if you're going to outsource, you got to make sure you have a relationship. And it's not a relationship that you're just paying a payment every month. It's a relationship that you are being educated on. You're being provided new updates. DOT's evolving every day. I mean, we're going to have autonomous vehicles in the next 10, 15 years. The DOT themselves are writing new legislation and new law for these types of vehicles. So the final thing is now you've onboarded your insurance. You waited the 40 to 45 days right now, which is the average to get a DOT number. And you are now ready to create revenue, right? Well, the next step you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get on a load board. And we've talked about load boards before, about how DAT is the industry leader in a load board. That's where you're going to do your revenue. That's where you're going to be on the spot market at the beginning, because you're not going to start this business on contracted loads, which is ultimately the goal. But at the beginning, it's not going to happen. You're going to be focused on the spot market. That means that you're going to have to learn how to use DAT and how to procure loads from qualified brokers in the load board. On top of that, something I highly recommend, QuickBooks. QuickBooks Online is a very inexpensive product, and it's a very robust product. And QuickBooks Marketplace connects through APIs, tons of third-party CRMs, accounting systems, other apps that can make your business for tracking expenses and income very easy. Start off the right way with your QuickBooks setup and your DAT. Don't be outdated and start your business running on Excel spreadsheets and think that long-term that's going to be sustainable. Get going with having a profit and loss, having a balance sheet, and learning how to reconcile that every month in order to have the most efficient and clean data in order to eventually get loans and get a line of credit in order to grow your business. Nobody's paying you a load the day you book the load. You got to have 30, 45-day terms with these customers. So it's really important to be able to know who owes you money, how much they owe you, when they should get you paid, okay, and what your balance sheet and profit and loss is going to look like in a quarterly, monthly, yearly view. And QuickBooks can do that for you very cheap.
So you do recommend that you own, as a trucking business owner, you own your accounting. You don't hire third-party accountants.
No, I didn't say that. I mean, I think you're going to need a CPA to do your taxes and run your at the end of the year financials. But your day-to-day, creating an invoice, submitting that invoice to a customer, receiving a payment, you're going to have to do that on your own.
All right.
Yeah, that's not realistic for a CPA to do that when you run 1 or 2 trucks. It's not possible. Your revenue on a weekly basis on a truck is going to be between $6,000 and $8,000 on a weekly basis if the truck's running an average of 3,000 miles, which is really, really like the top tier of a driver at this point, because you have ELD mandate, which allows you only drive a certain amount of hours a day. You have road conditions. You know, we're in the middle of winter now. A driver's not going to drive 500 miles in the middle of a snowstorm like he would do in the middle of summer from Miami to Atlanta in 95 degrees of weather. It's a totally different animal. So there's a lot of caveats and scenarios, and you're going to have to plan for these scenarios because you're ultimately going to be responsible for communicating with your customer on what day and time that driver is going to get there. So I recommend QuickBooks. I recommend it as a very inefficient cost, and I recommend doing that immediately. The final thing is we're going to go back to the compliance aspect of it. you have to do compliance, and you have to outsource that compliance, in my opinion. I don't think it's smart to use an internal use your own internal compliance. You want somebody that is going to be biased and neutral and look at your operation and give you hard questions to answer. So I recommend highly looking at a third-party compliance to manage your driver onboarding, your drug testing, your quarterly drug testing, your random drug testing. All those things got to be done on a quarterly basis, and it's super important to do that with a third party, especially if you're starting. Now, you could do that for a couple years. You can then, hire X compliance people to come to run your business. But at that point, you probably scaled. You've gone to 10, 20 trucks, and then you can afford that. But at the beginning, you're not going to be able to afford that. You're going to have to really focus on utilizing a third-party vendor to do compliance. And I think those are the main things that will allow you to be, at least initially, really successful. And by doing these things, you're setting yourself up with a really solid foundation to further develop and educate yourself. And by educating yourself, you in turn have to educate your staff and your drivers.
So out of all these steps that you go through to start, what's the most difficult at the beginning?
The insurance is going to be the most difficult because it's going to be the most expensive. Getting a DOT number is going to be a type form on the DOT website, basic information that you're going to have to answer. You're going to have to, on your business plan, discuss if you're interstate or intrastate, depending on if you're going to be local or over the road. Once you've done that and you put that in a very simple 6-7 sentence business plan, that eventually will evolve. But at the beginning, you want to just understand what your model is going to be, because you're going to have to go to Progressive or your local insurance agent in your state and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm only running 50-mile radiuses around Texas or Atlanta. So I want you to vet me and risk me under 50-mile radius, which is going to be totally different than if you're running all 48 states, right? As an insurance carrier, just logically, 50-mile radius is going to be a lot less risk than all 48 states. So you need to write that business plan in order to give your agent, or Progressive in most cases, because that's going to be the easiest one to guarantee you insurance. It's going to be the easiest way for you to get that insurance. All right, guys. Well, this has been a great podcast today, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions. So we'll keep on, trucking along in getting you those answers. And we're going to provide you today with 5 or 6 links that are going to really help you get that trucking business started.